those Nicaraguans, not the Contras, or Contra, as it's usually called, even in the plural. So the point is not that you would not protect those people, but you would be protecting them because they're people, not because they're Nicaraguans, not because they're victimized, not because of anything, but because you're there to protect human life. And in theory, if the tide were to turn, say if some of those campesinos would grab some of the guns and start shooting back at the Contra, I mean, mind you, there'd be a small, for 1 second there, there'd be a rather large thrill of satisfaction. But in reality, as a non-violent person, you would switch affiliations and not switch affiliation, you have no affiliation. You'd switch over and protect the Contras. Is this realistic? Can it actually happen in practice? Well, I know of one very dramatic case from a domestic nonviolent intervention, which takes place in Ann Arbor, Michigan, because every year in the good city of Ann Arbor, the Ku Klux Klan has a rally. And they are not a majority community up there north of the Mason-Dixon. And the good people of Ann Arbor come out, and some of the bad people of Ann Arbor come out, who are bad in every way except they're not racists, and they hate Ku Klux Klan, and there's these terrific riots, and the police can't even handle it. Well, it so happens that one of the TPNI organizations called Michigan Peace Team is based in Ann Arbor, and they do domestic interventions. They are third parties, you see. They're not Klan members, and they're not anti-Klan members. This is a subtle distinction I'm trying to get out here. As professionals, they're in favor of peace. That's what they're in favor of. So they actually come out and do interposition. There's real interposition, you know, the last final weapon, ultimate weapon in TPNI, between Klan members and people who would attack them. And this has worked beautifully. And the police have praised them to the skies and said, you know, we would not have been able to control these people without you. And all they are armed with are yellow T-shirts, rather attractive yellow T-shirts that say Michigan Peace Team on them. Well, on one of these occasions, some of the anti-Ku Klux Klan hateful people got out of control, slipped through the line, and were beating a Klan member rather seriously. And this very large African-American woman rushed over and threw her body on top of him and protected him from all of these people and then helped him up. So I think that tells the whole story. But it's not the only episode. There was also a case, more to the point, in, I believe this happened in Hebron, I'm not sure right at the moment, where there was some IDF soldiers in an apartment searching for something, and a deranged person came in with a knife, and there happened to be a Christian Peacemaker Team member on the scene, and he immediately got in the way and held that person, held onto the knife hand until the soldiers could disarm him. On still a third occasion, because I think it's a really important point, it's good to try to get this in focus. On more than one occasion, Peace Brigades International in Guatemala has been accompanying a group, say a group of striking workers in one case that I'm thinking of, and the workers, one of them showed up armed, and the rest of the group refused to repudiate that, to tell him to leave or to lay down his weapon, and PBI turned around and left. We can't be here. We can't protect you if you have a way of protecting yourself, which is a very different modality. Those of you who are intimately familiar with the Mahabharata, which probably is a small percentage of this community, there's a very dramatic scene in that vast epic where the heroine, Draupadi, who's now become a kind of figurehead for the entire feminist movement, Draupadi is going to be humiliated in front of a vast crowd. They're going to be ripping off her sari, her dress, and she has 5 husbands. They're all heroes, but it'd be way too long of a story to say they can't intervene. So there she is, and she's praying to God for help, save me, save me. And she's a completely innocent victim, going to be humiliated, which is the worst nonviolent point of view, even in a sense, even worse than death. She's praying and praying, and God is apparently not interested. You know, he's got his computer screen turned off, and his consort Lakshmi says to him, you know, what kind of a divine incarnation are you? Look, this is one of your best devotees. She's praying to you for help, and you're not doing it. He says, honey, take another look. And she looks down, and sure enough, Draupadi is desperately holding onto her sari with one hand and praying with the other hand. And at a certain point comes where she goes from poverty to destitution in her mind. She says, I'm helpless here. Let's go the other hand, and prays, and immediately there's an intervention. It's a really cool intervention, too, because nothing happens with the guy who's pulling her sari off. Your saris are about 6 yards long. So he gets to yard 6, and he gives a yank, and 2 more yards come off, and he pulls off about 400 yards of sari and then drops exhausted to the floor. So that's how God intervenes. He definitely has a sense of humor, he or she. Now, back to our subject, which is the nonpartisan nature of intervention, which Muhammad Khatib referred to, among other things that he was referring to in that brilliant statement of his. So, just to finish up with it, what we've decided is, as a community more or less, is about 20 different organizations, we don't actually meet together, but what we decided is that we are on the side of peace and justice, and in a case where one side is clearly being victimized, all our behavior will be on behalf of the victim. We'll protect the victim, because the victimizer doesn't need protection. But we promise you that the minute the victimizer needs protection, we'll protect him or her. It has nothing to do with who we like or who we don't like. So that's part of what Muhammad was getting at. Michael? Of course. If you really know what's happening, if you've taken PAX 164 or some real advantage like that, then you'll know that you're protecting the victimizer from his or her own victimization. And I don't think we've formally mentioned it yet, but there is a wonderful, maybe not wonderful, but there's a very interesting concept in psychology today called perpetrator-induced traumatic stress. And what this is about is the damage that you do to yourself when you harm another person, knowingly. It's something that's so serious in its consequences that the United States Army's official position on this is to ignore it. They say if we were to even talk about this, it would put an end to a necessary activity, namely warfighting, which they consider necessary. Okay? Perpetration-induced traumatic stress. It's obviously kind of a play on traumatic stress syndrome, right? Post-traumatic stress, PTSD. Yeah. Gotta get your acronyms straight in this business. So the person who has been working on this, her name is Rachel McNair, and she will actually be at the Nonviolent Educators Conference that's taking place on campus in July. Yeah. Yoga and meditation, and they're trying to incorporate that into the veteran recovery program. So just so I know. Okay. There's a little hope. Thank you, Ashley. They're trying to bring yoga and meditation into recovery programs. That I feel good about. If they try and bring it in as training, we're going to have to talk. But no, that's very good. Yeah. No, and obviously one person who was very good at this for Vietnam veterans was Thich Nhat Hanh. He developed whole workshops and things to help veterans get over this. But yes, Michael's point is very well taken. You really are not intervening on behalf of one side against the other, even when you interpose yourself, or if you don't have to go that far, you do good offices or something to protect a victim. You are, of course, also protecting the victimizer at the same time. Matthias?
That's a good way to incorporate that. I mean, it's as a theoretical concept, that sounds beautiful. Only feel the bias I have towards
Yeah.
one side and the anger I would feel towards
Yeah.
one side, you know?
Yeah.
How can I practice it?
Wow. Amy, do you have anything to say about that?
Something I noticed.
Excuse me, let me repeat Matthias' question, because he's asking, this is a beautiful concept in theory, but as Goethe said, Glau ist alle Theorie. Theory is nowhere. How are we, given the hatred that we tend to spontaneously feel when we see victimization, what are we actually going to do, Amy?
I was just going to say one thing I noticed from the video of the demonstrations.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes people were saying to the soldiers, like, victim
Yes,
and
yes,
so I can
yes.
appeal to them and tell
Yes.
them, you're being a victim too.
Yeah, yeah.
And that helps. But
That's a good
some
point.
of the other times you're also pointing that out.
Yeah, in any real human community, and possibly in any real human individual, you'll get a mix of both. Sometimes you'll be able to keep this beautiful thing in focus, and sometimes you won't. So all that we're saying here is, to the extent that you can keep it in focus, you'll be effective, be more effective. Actually, the phrase they were using, Amy, is you can refuse too, because there's a famous set of Israeli soldiers who are the refuseniks. And actually, last semester we heard from one of those, high-ranking Air Force officer. So I also caught that and thought that was terrific. You're not going to them and saying, you're bad, get out of here. You're saying you can refuse too. And this is a lot of how the fraternization works in civilian-based defense. You go to the soldiers and say, I think you've been misled. What are you doing here? You should be joining us. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so what else stood out for you? Marisa, John, Amy, Jenna, others of you who were there last night, would you like to add? Alex, were you there?
I went to the news.
Okay. Okay. I understand it was the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
heard. I just went through the chance to talk to one of the people afterwards.
Wonderful.
And I asked him what he thought was going on with Nebraska last night, whether it's kind of growing voice of people are starting to think that, and whether
Yeah.
it's going to be able to use it on a large scale.
Uh-huh.
And without even thinking, what he said to me was with your help.
Wow.
So he
Wow.
was really stressed in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
intervention.
Yeah.
So that was really compelling.
Yeah. And that certainly is the way these social uprisings have gone for the last many years. So what Alex is saying is she asked Muhammad, is nonviolence going to thrive in Palestine? And without a moment's hesitation, he said, with your help. So it really is. It's interesting because it's a key role that third parties can play, and in some cases will make the difference between success and failure. But at the same time, I think David was stressing this on Tuesday, the minute you go in and do things that they could have done for themselves, you're making a mistake. You're disempowering them instead of empowering them. Yeah, so how to know exactly what to do, how to mobilize their indigenous resources and then step back. So I was very glad one of you was asking on Tuesday, when do you leave? There's kind of a double problem there. There's something that we kind of tongue-in-cheek we call peace imperialism, where if you go in and say, hey, we've got peace and you don't, you need us, that will tempt you to stick around even after the immediate crisis has been resolved. But the other thing that happens, and incidentally, Matthias, we are getting back to your question. The other thing that happens is when you go and risk your life for other people, a funny thing happens. You fall in love with them. And it's very difficult to get out. You go and discover that these people who are different from you and live in another country and all of this stuff, that they're your people, and you've lived through deeply emotional, border situation tensions with them. It has been actually a real problem in the whole TPNI field, not only to know strategically when you should leave, but to be able to leave emotionally. It's been difficult, because if every team that went into a country ended up staying there, there'd be no, where are we going to get this 250,000 person team to be international and be really third party after that? But back to Matthias' question, here you go into these situations, and for example, I was over at Rabbi Lerner's house last night. He's going to be coming here talking to us, and assuming that his foot heals. He has a very badly sprained ankle. He's going to be talking to us, and we were both saying that we often don't go to these talks because we're so angry anyway. He said, I got enough anger for 7 lifetimes at this point. I don't need to see more scenes of victimization. Because when you see them, you lose your nonpartisanship. You lose your sense of the humanity of the other, and that hurts. This is kind of one of these very awkward things where there's an important question and I don't have the answer to it. I know in my own self, what I try to do is just remind myself that the victimizer is a victim. And just try to see the humanity in that person and remind myself that I'm trying to help that person get over this mindset of alienation that he or she feels. But we're dealing with very deep stuff, and that we need a system, a technique, to get these beautiful ideas deeper into our consciousness so that they become part of us. And that's known as PAX 94. Meditation, 8 to 9, it's every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. John? Oh, that was the... Yeah. 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 Very good point. That was probably the most painful thing that we saw last night, that you have these children under the age of 12 being egged on by their parents to throw stones at the Palestinians and curse them and kick them, and parental authority figures just standing around not intervening. And parental authority figures and IDF, the army, with all their guns. The Palestinians know full well if they pick up one stone, they'll get shot. But in terms of, the thing that always hurts me the most is damaging a young person at such a deep level that this is going to go on into the future. But what John is adding to that is, after all is said and done, that IDF soldier is just a grown-up baby who's been taught to hate from childhood, or he's been taught that it's his duty and he's defending a country and may not like it and all that stuff. So that's how to maybe deal with it on the idea level, and I think when we find ourselves in interpersonal situations, to try to approach a person and talk to them. David told you that incredible story yesterday about that guy who was really about to kill him, and he just looked and he called him friend, which came kind of spontaneously because David is a birthright Quaker. So that shows you long training helps in these situations. I think I told you when Nehru was getting beat up by Lathis, he looked up at that cavalry, that mounted policeman, and he said it'd be so easy to pull that guy down off his horse. I'm a much better rider than he is. But then, as he said, long training and discipline help. Now that's one of my, I hope you kind of catch on, we're talking about two topics at once here. We're talking about the talk last night and about third-party nonviolent intervention. I'll try to keep it down to two simultaneous topics. One of the questions that I didn't raise yesterday, Tuesday when David was here, and the reason I didn't is that I raise it all the time, and I'm kind of famous for this. Oh my God, here comes Nagler, here we go again. I'm always sticking my hand up and saying, what about the training? Because to go to someone for a 3-week training, that means, yes, you may know something about customs, you may know something about how to organize yourselves, how to keep track of one another, all of these good things, but when that deep button gets pushed and your sense of humanity is violated at a deep level, it's not going to be there for you. On one meeting took place in northern India, this was quite a while ago now, Narayan Desai was there. He was, his father was Mahatma Gandhi's lifelong secretary, Mahadev Desai, and they're going around the circle thinking of how we're going to build these Shanti Sena teams. And incidentally, I misspelled Shanti Sena, S-H-A-N-T-I. I left off the I on the blackboard. As soon as I noticed that, to my horror, but didn't want to interrupt David's presentation. So okay, we're going to do this Shanti Sena thing. How much training do we need? And the Americans who say, well, I think an intensive weekend workship would do it. We'll use PowerPoint. No, they didn't say that. And the Indians when were a little more realistic. It was going to take, I think we're going to have to dedicate 2 weeks to this. And they got around to Narayan and they asked him, what do you think? Oh, I think one lifetime should be enough. So it really is one of the most difficult and undeveloped questions in this whole field. Yeah.
I think it should be much more addressed or
Okay.
part of the community because
Yeah.
we are so tame and so easy to fall into.
Mhm.
You know, when I go to a demonstration, something
Yeah.
that's so easy for you to just get so rageful and
Yep.
wanting to go against the other side.
Yep.
Police or something.
Yep.
You know, and this is so complex and
Yep.
needs a lot more attention.
It needs a lot more attention. Ashley, did you want to add something?
Well, I was just going to say, it's ADSA. It's almost like, seems sometimes that we preach to the choir, the ones who really
Uh-huh.
know the tools, they know how to deal in protest, and the ones who have the range and can't control it,
Yeah.
are the ones really getting the information of how to control it.
Yeah. What we should probably do, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Ash?
No.
Okay. What we should probably do is when we come back to this, when we're talking about globalization and what happened in Seattle, let's address the whole question of at least how to keep violence out of a demonstration, if not how to keep it out of your heart. Which, frankly, I was one of those, when they originally were organizing the Nonviolent Peace Force around 2001 and stuff, Mel Duncan, who's now sort of the CEO of this whole thing, he was saying, well, we should offer meditation. And I was the one who said, let's not do it because you can't just pick somebody and say, hey, now you offer meditation. You have to know how to do it. I've been doing it for 40 years, and all I would do is show people the technique without getting involved in their karma. That's the most that I would dare to do on my own. But it's a serious problem. I know you had a question, Roberto. We'll get to you in 1 second. Paciencia, todo lo alcanza. There's one way we've been able to go about this. It's not the greatest, but at least it works in a kind of rough and ready fashion. And that is not so much the training itself, but you use the training as a screening. And you try to get to know people and get to know if they've got what it takes to go and do stuff like this. And I remember hearing from Liam Mahoney, who was one of the leaders of Peace Brigades International and was involved in the trainings for Haiti. Now, Haiti was a real success story because the UN got frightened and left. That's what the big institutions, that's what they do. They pull their people out immediately. United States Army fled. Yes, I said it and I'm glad. When you see these signs around rural areas that say these colors don't run, red, white, and blue, guess what? They ran. A whole ship full of infantry, soldiers, maybe it was Marines. I don't know. They pulled into Port-au-Prince and there was a few people on the dock saying, we've got pistols, we're going to shoot you. The ship turned around and went back. So the UN couldn't do it, the US Army couldn't do it, and this coalition called Cry for Justice in Haiti, which was like 75 people, no weapons, practically no money, no nothing. They stayed there for months and months and months, protecting human lives while all of this was going on. But is this why I'm talking about Haiti? No. The reason I'm talking about it is that there was this rather long training for Cry for Justice, and at the very last minute, Liam had to say to somebody, you can't go. It's very, very difficult. But it's much better to do it then than to have somebody break down and have to be carried out on a gurney or whatever. So you're saying which should be addressed more, and I'm very happy to hear you say that because this is what I do. This is why they say, oh no, here comes Nagler. I'm constantly saying we have to pay much more attention to the training piece. Because if you realize how deep this is, I'm not sure how many of you have heard this story. I hope you'll be polite and pretend that you've never heard it before, but I had a friend who went down to San Francisco State when there was some interracial problems there. And we recommended that he not go, but he went anyway. And then he called up and said, hi, this is Tim. So hi, Tim, what's up? Did someone come down and get me? Where are you? It's the 63rd precinct. What happened, Tim? I don't know. Yeah, he literally said, when I came to, I was sitting on the policeman's chest and hitting him. So this was a very specific person, that had never, if you asked him, he would say he's never capable of doing such a thing. But you get there and these things erupt out of you. So this is a big, big problem. But the potential here also is very, very big because if we can tap into those deeper energies and get them on track, we have a really powerful force here. Okay, Roberto.
Just a comment following up what he said,
Uh-huh.
that once you get protests, show those events, it's harder for
Yeah.
you to be in partisanship.
Uh-huh.
It's not the people, it's the problem.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've noticed from places that I've been as well, I'll say it's mainly on how the protests are being conducted, how the leadership of the protests, the people are doing it.